is open wide. My cares are swept away. Spirit, teach me to pray. Teach me to pray. My heart is open wide. My cares are swept away. Spirit, teach me to pray. Teach me to pray. Wash my grief away. Here in this sacred space, Spirit, teach me to live in grace. Teach me to live in love, unconditionally. Let my heart open. Spirit, teach me to live in
Okay, good evening.
Hey, beautiful.
Yeah, let's just close our eyes for a second and get centered in prayer. Together, let's take a deep breath in. A little pause at the top of that breath and just slowly release. With the breath, we release the busyness and the worries and distractions of the day, and we just allow ourselves to connect mind, body, and spirit, and connect one with another. Become present in this moment. We open our hearts and our minds. We sanctify this time. We claim it for the highest and best for everyone concerned, everyone who's involved in this discussion tonight, who might possibly watch it later, and everyone in the world is affected by our intention to raise our consciousness and to pray from that understanding that we are one with that absolute good we refer to as God, that we are a pure expression of that universal absolute. And for this truth and so much more, we simply say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it is. Amen.
So it
So
is.
it is. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so who wants to check in? Hi, Hetty.
Hello.
I didn't see her there till she stood up. We've got Jay and Tommy, and we've got Valerie, right? It's
Right.
still home, but I think it's Valerie. Maria, Rocio, and Judith.
Hello
Anybody
all.
want to? Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening.
Maria, good to see
Hi,
you.
Jay, Reverend Jay.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Let's see. Where are you? I can't see you.
No, I have it, the video turned off.
Oh, I see. Your iPhone, Jay. Yeah.
For some reason, it's not putting my normal name. I don't know why. I've had trouble with this.
iPhone J. That's
iPhone J, that's it.
Yeah,
iPhone Jay.
that's your rapper name, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Woohoo!
Okay, does anybody have a check-in or anything, or should we just jump right in there?
Jump right in there.
Okay, I'll go back to sharing the screen. And we'll start with our final week of The Universe is Calling. And I'm recording, good. The Universe is Calling, opening to the divine through prayer. We've been talking about this is the 5th week now. And it's probably gonna start my music. Yep. And this week we're on the final 3 chapters, 12, 13, and 14. And I hope to get through it. Not that I don't want to stop any discussion, but I hope we have a little bit of time. If there's anything lagging out there that from the other classes that you want to revisit, we can do that as well at the end. So chapter 12 is worship and the power of group prayer. I know that Judith facilitates the what is it called? The 8.
Power of 8.
Power of 8, yes. And intention setting, whether you call it prayer or not, it's that same power. What he says is the universe is calling us to awaken to oneness. And that's one of the powers, the absolute phenomenal experience of group prayer and group intention setting and mastermind work and healing circles. We really expand our awareness of how we are simply not separate from one another. I mean, we kind of go through the world and the world seems to always speak in duality, but we are one. We are one with that we are expressing in the world, which we call God. We are one with one another. We're one with everything in existence, whether it has life or just life force energy. So he says also in this same chapter, you do not have to go to church or to any sacred site to get close to God. There is nowhere in all the world where you can get any closer to God than right where you are. Any comments about that?
Absolutely right. It's just given. Yeah, I love it.
Anybody else?
The kingdom of heaven is within you.
Yeah.
It's true. But there are people, go ahead, yeah.
I was just gonna say it's wonderful. I just love it.
Yeah, and yet there's such this energy around pilgrimages and, traveling to sacred sites. And I've been to sacred sites myself, and I feel that power, just like going to Unity Village where they've been praying 135 years, you feel a shift in the vibration there. There's a different consciousness. So there's a reason to go and connect with that, but we don't have to, is what he's saying. So it's not like it's not a sacred place. There are plenty of sacred sites where you know when you're there that it is different from the everyday life, but you're still who you are. You're just connecting in with that higher vibration, just to be my full hippie self, your higher vibe.
I have
So
a
he's-
comment about.
Yes.
I have a comment about that. I was just going to say that we have it within us, and we take it with us. And so when we come together with other people, the reason it feels, you can just feel that vibration is because I think it just kind of multiplies. It's just, it just all pulled together, and it's just, you can just feel it, and you just, sense it from other people, and it's a really beautiful thing. And it, you can feel it, like when you get together in group prayer, and when you go to a day of prayer where other people, and I think it gives people hope, when you come together and you pray like that.
And we do raise one another's vibe, in quantum physics. In physics, the ripple effect and the wave that comes out from, they talk about dropping a stone in the water. When you're on that, when you have that raised vibration within you and you come into that environment, it actually raises you up. Now, if you go and you bring all your, you have a fit or whatever, you can interfere. You can have interference with that vibration. But when people are coming together with a common intention, it actually magnifies. And you can see that out working, in physics and in nature. I mean, it's scientific. It's not just something we feel or believe or a woo-woo idea. It's something literally proven.
And it doesn't really even have to be prayer, right? It can be people getting together with a certain intention, like some unity courses that I've taken, where, the focus is not prayer, the focus is on learning. But just like this, I mean, we're all of a one mind on this topic. And so that in itself raises elevates all of us, right? The consciousness of all of us.
Absolutely, because it's only about consciousness ever. So you might call it prayer, and you might call it prosperity, or you might call it metaphysics, but all it ever is about is consciousness. And consciousness has a vibratory effect on the world around us. So when we raise our consciousness and we have a higher vibration than we put out in the world, it definitely, whether it's intention setting, whether it's just any kind of prayer. I used a couple of things from a Unity booklet that's free online called The Gift of Prayer. And they were talking about how the prostrations and the perfect wording and this, that, and the other are irrelevant in prayer. You could be dancing, you could be singing, just like that song. I felt it in that song. That's why I played it, because it allowed me to just drift inside and just feel it. It was a little bit reminiscent of some of the worship songs. And I have a little bit of an issue with the word worship. And he talks about it in here because there's, the origin of the word in Hebrew means like a dog lapping at your heels. And so we don't worship something outside of ourselves, but it evokes that beautiful feeling from within, as does chanting. I've discovered recently, if any of you have challenges with your blood pressure, I have started, when my blood pressure's, I don't like to take a lot of medication, I've started oming, just a repetitive om, and it lowers my blood pressure faster than just breathing. It's that vibration. It's moving through me. I'm very intentional about it. And so it's amazing. And I was like, oh, well, it's just an added bonus that I get to om now too.
You know what Edgar Casey mentioned in at least one reading, and I don't know how many, but the beneficial effects on the entire body and nervous system of just using the word Om.
There's probably a lot of science on that. I know that the Art of Living Foundation does a lot of research on meditation and chanting and different things. But yeah, I've read a lot of Edgar Casey, and I have a number of different books, but I didn't see that in what he said, but yeah, it's that, because Om is in that ah sound is in Allah, Yahweh, God. So you're really calling on that energy of absolute good, of perfection, of divine order, of divine intelligence, of perfect health when you're doing that. So
Well,
that makes sense. Thank you.
and
That
Casey
makes,
did talk about the fact that that the reason it was so effective is because it means God, but secondly, the vibratory characteristics of the word itself impact the entire being, actually.
yeah. And that's really true. And, you know, I've been reading, just begun rereading, there's Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and it's talking about how, you know, the chanting of Sanskrit and the perfect use. And, you know, that's a certain belief that people have, but it's not just a belief. You have to experience it. You know, basically you have to try, just like many of us here, we've read Edgar Casey, we've done various techniques, we've learned TM, we try yoga, we've done whatever it is. And for you personally, you might vibrate and have resonance with something, some form of prayer, because everything in life is prayer. So find those things that bring you there. I mean, the reason I found it was because I was going to donate blood and my blood pressure was a little high. And they said, well, you know, just sit still for a minute. And it didn't quite come down. And so I just sat there and started oming. I was like, wow, then it really dropped. So I can see how that, I didn't even put that together, that it just naturally, that's just something I started doing because I wanted to be able to give blood. So he says, no one can be any closer to God than you. Wait. Oh, that should be Dan. No one can be any closer to God than you, though. They may be more aware. Oh.
There was.
Though no one can be any closer to God than you, though they may be more aware of their oneness. Sorry.
The comma's in the wrong place.
Yeah,
That's why
it is. That's what happens when I'm kind of rushing. I apologize. I knew I needed to go back through and proofread this, but I also needed to walk my dog, and I chose to walk my dog. So anyway, he goes on to say, you can't offend God. This is contradictory to so much of the traditional, more fundamentalist Christianity. You can't offend God. God knows nothing of sin. Sin is simply the perversion in our consciousness, a frustration of our God potential. And in unity, we say it's missing the mark. That sin, that term from archery, you know when you're out of vibration, you feel frustration when your consciousness is not in alignment with who you truly are, with that deeper knowing within. He says, the practice of religion is a subtle attempt at appeasement and reconciliation. How easy it is to go through a ritual on Sunday and then put it all back into the 6-day closet of unconcern. The word Sabbath from the Hebrew Shabbat means intermission. It is not a special day, but a special discipline of consciousness on any day. A special discipline of consciousness on any day. God cannot be more present anywhere than he is present everywhere. He cannot be any more present anywhere than he is present everywhere. I love that statement.
I liked it when he said, how often should you practice the presence? All the time. And I forgot what he compared it to, but in practicing the presence, he compared it as a habit. Let it be a habit, just like, and he compared it to another habit. And I forgot what he said, but why would you ever not be without whatever that was, like a regular habit? So sorry I brought it up. I can't remember what the habit was, but
No, I think it's in the slides. So
oh,
let me see
okay.
if we can,
So
let me see if I can, I was kind of flipping around trying to look for that. So
I've forgotten where that was, but this one reminded me of that because that
yes.
really touched me, because it reminded me of, or he may have mentioned about Paul saying pray without ceasing. It's this makes that make sense to me.
Yes, exactly. So he didn't mean pray without ceasing, like sit in prayer with your hands folded or in a special posture or whatever. He means be aware that everything you do, every thought and word is a prayer. So have your consciousness of prayer. He says in this chapter 13 that we're moving on to, prayer practice for human needs, it is in silence, finding that point in you where God is being you.
Yeah.
I think that's an overwhelming concept for a lot of people. The longer that you're in metaphysical studies, the more you begin to embrace it. I know that when I was in my 20s, I had an older friend who was very successful and very meditated every day, did yoga every day, and said something to me one time about God within. And I remember at my little 20-year-old consciousness, 20 something, I was out of college, but I was thinking, wait, what is he saying? He's God? And then I caught myself and I'm like, no, he's a very nice person. He's not speaking from his ego, but you know, that stuck in my head for decades before. And I even came back and talked to him about it later. It's like, you know what? You said this a long time ago and I didn't understand it, but it stuck in the back of my mind. And now I have a better understanding of it. So we find that point in us, and then we have to allow it to unfold. We have to bring our awareness to it. He says, you may talk about, this is maybe what you're talking about, Valerie. You may talk about getting into the presence, but you can never be out of the presence. For the presence is present, all present, omnipresence, omnipresent. So we're not really getting into the presence. We talked about this, I think when Jay was on, we talked about practicing the presence and how that's so important before we speak or begin something, you know, as ministers, to practice the presence. But we're not really practicing it. We're raising our awareness of it. We're not getting into it because we're never out of it. Because of the omnipresent nature of God, God is always expressing as us. It's just a matter of where we put our awareness. I think that's why intention setting is so important, whether it's through a mastermind group or a Power of 8 or whatever it is, we're bringing our focus together and it amplifies. Any comments? He says, you may say you are practicing the presence of God, but if your thought embraces a belief in separation, you and God being two different things, you're actually practicing the absence of God. And Tommy, you questioned this in one of the earlier chapters where he was saying that Christianity, the practice of Christianity, is actually practicing the absence of God as opposed to the presence of God. And he explains it a little bit better, a little bit more in this chapter. You may say you're practicing the presence
That's a
of
fucking
God.
word. I don't fucking.
What?
What was that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't think, we don't have anybody extra in here that would be bombing us. I don't think. Sometimes they have those little bombs that come in, though. But just to
Life is-
repeat, huh?
Life is so funny, right?
It is.
It's hilarious. I just
It is. It was super hilarious on Sunday.
Well, I tell you what. If
You
we were
never know what's gonna
if
come
we
up.
were having this discussion at some other point in history, we might be burned at the stake. So
Well, I live in a pretty conservative community. I guess that could happen anyway. But anyways, just to reiterate, he says, you may say you're practicing the presence of God, but if your thoughts embrace a belief in separation, you and God, you're actually practicing the absence of God. And you know what? In his book, Eric Butterworth often refers to, and sometimes I kind of change his wording because we're so ingrained to refer to God as him or he in the male persona, separate, that it's just part of our languaging in general. But it's something to keep an eye on so that we can not be contradictory, not be practicing the absence by using those dualistic terms.
and we keep doing it, Beverly, because I even hear a lot of prayer, unity prayer chaplains, and it's just so hard to get away from. And I think one of the videos I'm going to show tomorrow talks about once your brain has been convinced of something, it's real hard to change it.
It's true. It is. It's so hard when we have, that's why, that's when things kind of have to get pretty, as a society, things have to get pretty dramatic sometimes before we make conscious changes. Because when it's just a little correction, it's so easy for us to kind of make a correction, fall back, and not really commit to the new way forward. So with all the things that are going on right now, it's good that things are being brought to the surface. He says, all the life, am I sharing? I'm not sharing this, am I? Let me see. Here, I did it again. Sorry, I get to talking and then I'm forgetting what I'm doing as far as.
Well, I don't ever like to, put down another church, but there are actually, I guess most of the Christian denominations think of God as outside themselves, somewhere out there.
Not most, all.
Okay. So we're reading a book right now in another book club that I'm in, called Christ in Crisis by Jim Wallace. And so it's not so much talking about the churches, it's more talking about what's going on in our society, in our culture, in our society. But that would sort of explain it, maybe, if we're practicing, well, maybe I shouldn't have brought that up because I really don't want to condemn anybody else or what they're doing, but it's almost like if something's not working is what I'm saying, because
It's
our
working for the
our
people.
culture is kind of a mess right now.
Well, that's been said for eons. I mean, people are always saying, oh, the young people, they're messing everything up, and oh, all the change is terrible. And, I mean, these things people resist change.
Yeah.
It's just the way human beings are. We think, and this is another one of those things like referring to God in the masculine. It's one of those things that we're taught, like that whole paradigm of, get out of school, find a mate, get married, have a family, buy a house, then you're going to have a bow all wrapped up on your life and you'll never have any problems and it's all going to be so good and you'll be so happy. And people keep trying to sell that, like, you know, trying to tell women they should have a baby. That's going to make them happy. If a woman doesn't want a baby, it's not going to make her happy. She's not going to be fulfilled. She shouldn't feel the pressure to procreate, nor should a man, you know? So these kind of ingrained ideas, as Tommy was pointing out, once our brain gets a hold of it and the ideas are passed down, rarely do people stop and decide how they want to raise their children. They have children and they just begin raising them the way they were raised. And then as mistakes are made and things, people, you know, troubles are, then they stop and go, well, maybe we should do it differently. Or if they had a really terrible childhood, sometimes they start out that way, but you still have that tendency to go back. And it's getting a little bit off track, but every thought and every word is a prayer. And if our intention is to be a more conscious parent, a more conscious partner, a more conscious daughter or mother, or then we can raise our awareness with our intention. It, again, a form of prayer. I want to have more harmony, and I want to be more beneficially, you know, supportive of the people in my life. I mean, it's all part of the prayer process. So he says, all the life, substance, and intelligence of spirit are yours. All that you can accept. This is a tricky one. All the life, substance, and intelligence of spirit are yours. All that you can accept. So for a lot of people, again, we're going back to that idea that some people really resist this, I'm an expression of God, because it feels like too much pressure. You have all the creativity and the intelligence and everything available to you. If we can, as we go back to one of our earlier conversations, get out of our own way, take off the robe of illusion of believing that we're less than, believing what stories we've been told by our social status or our family or our preferences, whatever it is. We have to let all that go in order to accept all that the divine has already put in place for us. Because as we talked about, Maria, way back again, a few chapters back, the answer and the request are one. So the answer, that view of a better life, more harmonious relationships, prosperity, success, creativity, all of that already exists within us before we even decide that we want it. That's why we get this idea that we want to paint or we want to sing, or because it's there waiting to be awakened within us.
Can I make a comment, Beverly?
Absolutely.
The that guy, I forget because I haven't heard in a while. He does one of the Unity Online Radio. And if you never listen to Unity Online Radio, you need to go in there and listen all the programs. He does truth something, I forgot, Reverend Wayland somebody, this black guy from Chicago, he's a New Thought guy. And about the comment about all that you can accept. And he said something one time that really hit me, you know, and once in a while something, okay, that makes sense to me. He says, you know, God is like an ocean, so to speak. And if you go there with a thimble and try to get water, that's what you'll get. And if you go there with a bucket, that's what you'll get. And if you go there with a pipeline, that's what you'll get. So that's what that comment about what you can accept, what your consciousness is ready for, whether it's a thimble or just a big old pipeline, the source is there. And that really made sense to me. Waylon, what's his name?
It doesn't say his name. He does
not living with purpose.
Not living on purpose.
It's truth transforms. That's it. Truth transforms.
Okay. So yeah,
he's really. And by the way, Beverly, this guy, he does all these books like this hour stuff, and he'll do an hour on one chapter, and he's got them all there. They're all in the archives. You ever want to go in there, listen to it. I mean, he breaks them down. This
Yeah, that sounds like a great resource. Thanks for mentioning that, Tommy. Because I think for most people, we talked about this on our Sunday, you know, when you, not this week, but the week before, we were talking about praying for others. And we talked about it in here. You can't be in the worry of someone's challenges and pray for them at the same time, because you're in either the worry consciousness or you're holding them in the higher view.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be aware that there's a challenge, but if you can't accept that there is absolute good and that there's an answer and there's a better outcome and there's healing and there's prosperity, if you can't accept that, your prayers will be answered to the level of your consciousness and your ability to accept the outcome.
I
So
thought it was hard to believe that he actually walked out of the hospital when his son was being treated and screaming and everything, but he believed enough in how that worked that he made himself, I guess, because he knew that was the best, kindest, most helpful thing he could do.
well, he recognized, he had the self-awareness to recognize he'd gotten off kilter. He was not in alignment with his higher good.
Mhm.
And so he realized he had to pull himself away to get recentered.
Mhm.
And we have to, I have to do that even around the house with my dog. I'm trying to get ready for this class and kind of keep my mind, open. And here she is starting to growl as I'm talking about her. But we went for a really quick walk, and then she was like up under my feet, and I caught myself getting frustrated with her because I don't want to step on her. So I had to consciously stop and choose not to have that frustrated feeling with my dog, because being present for you in a higher consciousness was more important. And it made me laugh at myself. It's like, how many days does a moment like that happen, and then the rest of my day dominoes downhill because I didn't stop and shift my awareness away from the frustration into how I wanted to be in the world. But we have that power. I mean, it's who we are. We have dominion over ourselves. And by virtue of the fact that we have that dominion, we have dominion over the earth, the heavens and the sky. But all that you can accept is an important term to remember. Your prayer for healing should not be an attempt to fight sickness, but to know and release your wholeness. That's our whole prayer process. We've got denials and affirmation. Even though the appearance is this, I deny the power of that appearance over me, and I'm claiming my good. And that's how we're taught to pray by Jesus. It says, get the realization that there is an answer in God mind, even before you ask. And you are a state of consciousness in God mind. You are a state of consciousness in the mind of God. Any comments about that? You are a state of consciousness in God mind. I love that.
Yes.
After prayer, what? This is the final chapter. So he says, your prayer is not for God. And again, he uses he, so I put it in brackets because I want to point out that we're not talking about anybody. But he says, your prayer is not for God. He needs neither your prayers or your praise. Again, going back to many, not just traditional Christianity, but so many more traditional belief systems. When they were dealing with God, it's like we think if we flatter God enough, oh God, the highest and the best, and all the words, but he doesn't need, God, that vibration of truth that exists in the universe, doesn't respond to praise. The thing about praise is usually it's attached to gratitude and appreciation. So if you're praying from gratitude and appreciation, you're raising your vibration. So praise is a good thing that will affect that greater good. However, if you're praying from a consciousness of flattering something outside of yourself, it's not effective.
Or petitioning.
Petitioning, yeah, petitioning is even more contractive, right? Because you're like, oh, please, please, please. You're really pulling your own belief, what you can accept. You're making what you can accept even smaller and smaller by petitioning or bargaining or begging. He says, when you pray, move your feet. Is this from the Quakers? I think I usually say that it's Quaker. I think that's where I picked it up a long time ago. Pray and move your feet. Let me see, this is page 131, but I wanted to read something.
Is that like move in the direction of what it is that you're praying for? Move as though you're going in confidently in that direction?
He says, he's talking about Jesus. Let's see, is this what I wanted? Oh, no, that's not the, this is not in this chapter. I made this little note at the bottom, but it must have been, I must have just changed the other content of the screen. But no, when he's saying pray and move your feet, he's saying don't just sit and wait for your answer to come.
Mm-hmm.
Have a dynamic experience with the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up, he said, accept the dynamic, radiant child of God, which is you, and has been from the very beginning of time. So what he means is, like, you know that joke a lot of ministers use about there's a flood and the guy he stays behind in his house and he said, God will protect my home, God will protect me, I'm going to stay in my home. And the water comes up to his house and then it comes up to the second floor and he ends up on the roof. And somebody comes by in a boat and they say, hey, jump in and we'll save you. And he said, no, God will save me. And then somebody else comes by with a helicopter and he says, no, God will save me. And then he drowned and he goes to the pearly gates. Of course, this is all a joke, so not literal. And he says to St. Peter, wait a minute, where was God? I was praying the whole time. I was totally believing that God was going to save me. And St. Peter says, well, what do you want? He sent you a boat and a helicopter. So we have to be willing, and I'm sure there's a lot more to that joke, or I probably told it a little bit silly, but you get the point. We have to be willing to be responsive and in a dynamic relationship with the world around us. We need to pray. Yes, we need to pray from that consciousness of knowing we need to claim it. But when we claim it, we can't say, okay, I claim it because I want a red Ferrari for my birthday. And if you don't have in your consciousness that that's really possible, but you want to say it and you want to claim it, there may be a way where somebody, offers to lease a red Ferrari or whatever, or it could be a more suitable car that what you really want is transportation, or what you really wanted was some excitement for the weekend. And you think it's going to come in a red Ferrari, but somebody invites you to go ride a roller coaster. Your prayer's being answered for the thing that your heart desires, which is more excitement or fun. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I like that, the way you said that. Have a dynamic experience of the world around you. Because the answer is going to come through the world around you, isn't it?
It is. Or it might come through an inclination you have that all of a sudden you say, you know what, I want to go look at fabric today.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have anything in mind that I want to make, but I'm curious about fabric today for some reason. And that guidance takes you off in a direction where you have no resistance to fabric, right? But you might have resistance to, I'm mad at my friend and she should call me, but I want to call her, but I don't want to call her because she should call me first. And you've got this thing going on in your head, but in your heart, you really want to make up with your friend. And then who's at the fabric store when you go? And you have an opportunity for reconciliation without picking up the phone, without having to do something that you've taught yourself out of already. But in your heart, you really wanted reconciliation. You see what I mean? I mean, it doesn't always come linearly. It rarely comes exactly the way you wanted it, in exactly the timing that you wanted it. But it's always there if you'll just move and be engaged with the world. He says, we are asleep to our own true power, the reality within. We go about life walking and talking and maneuvering in a state of unconsciousness. So when we begin to celebrate every little moment where, you know what, I was just thinking about that friend and how could I make up with her? And there she was at the fabric store. I couldn't have orchestrated that. I'm so grateful, and it happened naturally, and I so appreciate it. Oftentimes when I need to have a difficult conversation with someone and I'm going it over in my head, how I might say something, I just stop and I say to God, I know within me is the wisdom and the right words to speak in a way this person can hear what it is from my heart that I want to share. And I don't want it to come from my ego. So I'm going to leave the opportunity and the timing open, and I know it will present itself. And you know what? 100% of the time it does. Just comes naturally. He says, you can know who you really are, then love, intelligence, and peace will no longer be merely words and
Disney
theory.
Plus Hulu and ESPN Plus now bundled
They
together.
will be you.
Characters, the largest streaming TV library, and
Love,
Disney
love
Plus.
and intelligence and peace will no longer just be words.
How to
They
do
will
a
be you.
resetting for your Epson XP440 printer. The first thing we need to do is to switch on the printer.
Yeah, you're
I think
picking
it's
up
the
some.
Martians.
Yeah, you're picking
Jay,
up
I
some
think it's coming
secrets.
in on your phone because there must be a interference because
Yeah.
your mic is off, but it was showing up on your phone. But that's okay. We're just about finished, and stay online with us, Jay. So let's see. So after prayer, what do? You discipline yourself to maintain the transcendent perspective and keep yourself in a state of perpetual trust in the spiritual process. Just like I was describing, that when I've in my head and from my small little human mind, Carly, come here. I can't think of the way, I can't imagine how I'm going to say what I need to say that's so difficult. Come here. But then whenever I remember and I go, sorry, talk to yourselves.
Does that remind you of anything, Maria?
Yeah, yes. And you know what? You guys are at a disadvantage because when my cat starts crying, all I have to do is mute the audio and the video, and I get up and I take care of them. But you guys are right in the middle of the presentation. It's kind of
Yes, that actually happened on Sunday for the first time. So I'm moving everything from the dining room living space that faces the golf course where she gets stimulated by people walking by. Usually she gets all that out of her system before we start, and she knows when I'm talking it's not okay, but I'm going to move it to a bedroom in the back that, you know, there's no place where she would get, because she usually wants to be right where I am because she's a dog. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you for your patience.
We understand, believe me.
Believe me.
We really do.
So that's the last one I had to share. So thank you all for being with us during this 5 weeks.
Thank you so much for hosting this and
Yeah.
all of you, because I just have really grown fond of Eric Butterworth, but I have not read as many of his books as I would like to, and I've wanted to read this one. And when I saw it, I thought, this is the time. So I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to know you all also.
And I would encourage you, if you got the book and you didn't finish reading it, go ahead and finish reading it, because what happened whenever I was reading spiritual economics as a part of a class at one time, I didn't keep up weekly with the reading, but I was on an airplane and I finished the book. And I remember that moment still vividly, just seared in my mind, where I closed the back cover of that book and I went, oh, I get it. Ah, that aha moment was so vivid, and prosperity exploded in my life because the consciousness shift that I had in relationship to the way that Eric Butterworth can communicate spiritual principle and metaphysical concepts.
Great. Well, I would like to say that in this today with you and what we've been seeing, and that consciousness of the group, or going to the church, or have a prayer group, or it's a group consciousness. And I go to church, but what had escaped my consciousness, I thought I was going to church to get inspired, but I never saw it from the perspective of I bring my own awareness, my own gifts to the pot, so to speak. So it's just a ripple, an ongoing thing that, you know, like you said, and that was kind of a, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that out, Rocio, because that was in his writings and I didn't make that point, you know, because I just kind of have to pick what I can. But no, that's a very, very good point. That, and he talks about that. That was where he talks about coming together in group prayer. He talks about the point of church. And so that's, yeah.
And it's us together right now in this study. We've become one in the studying, and so that it has expanded my and the group awareness is very important. I can read the book anytime, but that group awareness and that connection, even though it's virtual, it's very, I like it.
It's virtual as far as technology is concerned, but it's visceral as far as spirit is concerned.
Yeah, because there's no limit to that, or barriers, or walls, or distance.
I want to remind everybody again about the Unity Online Radio, because there's a bunch of different programs, and if you go in there, they're all archived, so you can go back and pick lessons or ideas and this and that. And there's one that I forget what the name is, but it's about the old stuff, and you can hear Eric Butterworth actually doing a talk or something. Oh yes.
Wow.
You can go in there and you can, it's archived in there. You can hear him speaking. So that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
Now the
I didn't know
recordings
that
are
was in
not
there,
great
Tommy.
because it was a long time ago, but it's him and he's talking. So just so you know.
Well, thank you for bringing this book to my attention, because I had never seen or heard it. You know, I've seen and heard of other of his other books, but I had never seen this one. And it was really good. Yeah. Now, can you repeat for me the last line that you said? I got distracted. You said maintain. That's how you summed it up. To maintain. That's Beverly.
Was it on the slide or?
No, it was just as you were ending it, and then your dog started barking, and you were saying maintained. Is it right?
It must have, yeah, I don't recall. 'cause
Okay, what are you supposed to do? So when you pray,
Here
what
it
do you
is.
do now?
So can you see the screen?
Yeah, it's very little and I have trouble with
Oh, okay. It says, here's what it says. It says, so after prayer, what do you do? This is that last chapter. He said, you discipline
maintain the transcendent
perspective.
perspective. Okay,
You discipline
maintain.
yourself to maintain the transcendent perspective
Okay.
and keep yourself in a state of perpetual trust. There's a little space that needs to be there. Perpetual
Okay.
trust in the spiritual process.
All right.
So just like today, whenever I was feeling frustrated with her and I noticed I was out of harmony, right? I shifted back to that more transcendent perspective. I can literally feel it because I'm a very energy sensitive person. I can literally feel it in my body. Now, I don't want you to think she's always giving me frustration, because the other day she was being so silly. I stood in one spot and I just belly laughed and my whole vibration shifted because I was laughing so hard and so sincerely at her silliness. And so it felt so good.
Yeah. And you know what? I have experienced that, but I never had the words to describe it. You know, so I mean, that right there, that sentence describes, it's like a shift. You know, you're like here, you're frustrated or you're fearful or whatever, and then all of a sudden you just stop, and then everything just seems to shift, and you begin to see a different perspective, and you're no longer looking so much at the physical, but more on a spiritual level, and your consciousness is you know, you raise your consciousness and your perspective changes completely. So then all the fear and everything dissipates because now looking at it in a totally different way.
And how fortunate are we that we have that understanding, right? Because so many people have no concept that with awareness, they can shift away from those challenging feelings, that focus, that perspective, and they can shift.
Yeah. But you know what? I love authors and writers who have the talent or the ability or the tools to be able to use words to express ideas and concepts and everything, things that we might experience, but we ourselves might not have the words. And then you know, it's hard to explain to other people if you don't have words, you know, for it. But you have these really talented writers that have a way of just being able to outline and write out, you know, the truth of things. And I think, you know, that is such an inspiration to so many people, and it just helps us along our journey, you know, to be able to grow and to evolve and to raise our consciousness. And
even if we can't quite get there yet with whatever the idea is, it's a calling to open up to it. You know, because words are, especially in spirituality, it's like the word God. You know, as soon as you say it, it's encapsulating and limiting. But conceptually, it can be larger, but experientially, it's limitless.
Yeah. Hey, Beverly, I'm sorry. I went to online radio, and the one that I was talking about is Truth Transforms by Reverend Galen McDowell. And like I said, he's done all these Discover the Power, Lessons in Truth. I mean, chapter by chapter for an hour. And the other one is called Unity Classic Radio, Words from Our Past.
Nice.
Words from our past.
One way I'm finding to practice some of this is when something happens, like for example today, sometimes I'm a little bit prone to make my agenda, make my schedule, and that's the way it needs to be. And when something gets in the way of it, my past habit has been to become irritated, even possibly angry. whatever. And so today, but I've noticed this happening several times recently when something has happened that has interrupted it. It's almost like I'm seeing God is putting that opportunity in front of me to improve raising my consciousness by not becoming irritable. And so today, when somebody called and canceled something that was a thing I had set aside 2 hours for, instead of becoming irritable, angry at her or anything like that, I just almost immediately, it was almost like I had crossed that hurdle of getting into the habit of letting it go and moving on to allowing, not immediately having to replan, but allowing that time and space for whatever it is to unfold or whatever. And I ended up with a 2-hour practice session on the piano that I really needed this week because we're having a music fest on Sunday and at Unity, and I really needed that work, and it ended up that today that time was the perfect time to do it. My housemate was out and I was fresh, ready for that meeting with her, and it worked out beautifully. And so not only I'm seeing that not only was it not an imposition, but it worked to my advantage for it to be canceled.
Yeah, so what I usually do when something works out so beautifully like that is I look back at what point did I pray for that time?
Oh.
Because that's an answer to a prayer that you put in place. You prayed for some time to get your practice in, and then the universe gave you an opportunity, and you were wise enough and listening to your guidance enough to say, oh, this is actually a better use of that 2 hours.
Huh. Okay.
So it might have appeared to be a canceled appointment, but it was really a captured opportunity.
Okay, I'll have to think about that too. Okay.
Yeah. All things work together for good. And when you make that shift, it just, it appears to you what it is. And that's just another way, a great example of how prayer is answered in unexpected ways. And, so many people could get themselves frustrated with the cancellation part of it and waste that 2 hours being frustrated and not have captured it and used it for the good.
Yeah, well, I mean, for years and years, I didn't know any other way. That was my habit. And so.
Yes, and we're full of them.
Now I learned something new.
Yeah, we're all full of habits that don't serve us. We're so unskillful throughout the years. Sometimes I think back on my habits of behavior in the past, and I think, oh my gosh, I was so unskillful. And still, I have very unskillful moments at different things, and I have to accept it and say, I'm going to try my best to remember that going forward, that really didn't work out so well, and I chose that as my,
They're called humbling experiences, Beverly.
They are.
There you go.
Why does humility get such a bad rap? It's really great for our growth.
It really is.
If you can't be that soft soil, which humility to me is soft soil, right? I mean, you can easily till it and get your seeds planted in it. And I think humility is not a terrible thing. And now that I've said that, I'm sure I'm going to have some opportunities to deal with that this week. I had some good ones yesterday. We had internet issues. My router didn't, right in the middle of service, I had to reboot the computer and reset the router. And
wow. Well, speaking of you spoke of prayer. I got a fortune and fortune cookie that said, the plans that you have are not going to work out as you expect, but it'll be good for you.
There you go. Valerie, that one's for you.
That was for a fortune cookie. That was
Learned that lesson.
Hand me that.
I always keep those little strips with the fortunes on there. I always keep them. I say, oh, thank you. Oh, they're so cool.
Anyway, guys, I'll see you later.
Okie dokie.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice
Beverly, where's Beverly?
evening.
Thanks,
Tommy?
everybody. Sorry, I
Tommy.
had to let her.
Yes,
Yes, Jay.
that's fine.
What did
That's
you
fine.
say the name of the radio program was from our past? Can you say that again?
Let me see if I still have it open. Hold on.
I think it was Words from Our Past.
Unity Classic Radio, Words from Our Past.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a bunch of, you just go to Unity Online Radio and then you see all the programs and you click on any of them and everything's archived in there. And you can pick, like I said, on Reverend Galen, you can find, I downloaded them. I mean, it takes an hour, but, and it's like Lessons in Truth or Discover the Power. And it's chapter by chapter, this guy. For the entire hour, it's an hour program. So he breaks it down really seriously. And that Words from the Past is just recordings from old stuff. And I think you might even hear Charles Fillmore in there at some point. And that one really sounds shaky because that's like from the 20s or something.
Recording
Right.
really
Wow.
hard. A lot of
Yeah.
static.
Yeah.
But there's just so many resources that y'all need to look at the website, online. I mean, Worldwide Ministries or just Unity website. There's so many resources we have. We really do.
Yeah, we really do. You're right, Tommy.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking that I wanted to get, look into more of that, some of the resources. And then somebody told me about the prayer room, that they have a prayer room that you can go to. You ever heard of that?
They have a daily, for a while I was getting the little, I don't know why I stopped getting it, but you can sign up. And at 11 o'clock Central, every morning, Beverly, you've been there, every day at Unity Village at 11 o'clock Central, they will have a prayer from the from the chapel, from the Peace Chapel in the Silent Unity Chapel.
And they share that on their Facebook.
Yeah, probably.
So what I do each day, it's Monday through Friday. And so I just go and share that onto our Facebook page for Unity the whole country.
Yeah, and you get a little click and say, here we go. And it gets, 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's very centering.
Yeah. Isn't it supposed to be like silent prayer, right? I think that's what they told me. That you go in and they kind of do like a silent prayer type of meditation or
that one is actually an actual prayer. And a couple of our classes with the LUT things, they took us over there for at 11 o'clock, just to be there present. And one of the ministers will come down and do a,
okay. So
but there is someone, what you're, I think, thinking of, Maria, is that there is someone in
holding
silent
vigilance.
prayer in the prayer room 24 hours a day.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Holding vigilance. Yeah. All the time. 24 hours a day.
The one that told me about that was Chris, Jay. Chris, she said that she had tried that when we had that Unity Day of Prayer.
Right.
Yeah, she said she had gone into one of the quiet rooms or something to do the prayer, because they would do the music and then they would go off for a period of time, and so you could go into one of the rooms and pray.
The village has like 9 chapels in it.
Wow.
9 or something like that. There's a bunch of them.
Wow.
Awesome.
well, thank you, everybody, for being a part of this and contributing and adding your consciousness and your thoughts and your sharing. And you really made it a rich experience for me. And I've enjoyed it so much. And thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you very much.
Thank you,
you so
Reverend
much.
Beverly.
Did an excellent job. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well,
All
I will
right.
see you all
you and
Tuesday
All right. I'll
night.
see you around. Maybe on
Yeah.
Thursday.
We'll see you around on the web.
Okay. You
Good
take care.
night.